Hello and welcome to the informational webinar for the WERC Environmental Design Contest. I'm Ginger Scarborough, the program manager, and we're coming to you from sunny, mountainous Las Cruces, New Mexico to help you get ready for the April contest. The contest is going to be April 16th through 19th, 2023. It's a project-based workforce development initiative with tasks designed by industry and government agency professionals. At the contest, students pose as engineers as they solve real-world problems that require innovative solutions, and they build working bench scale demonstrations that they bring to the contest as proof of concept for their designs. They're mentored by a whole team of practicing engineers who serve as our judges. And for many students, this is the first time they've experienced a water-scarce environment as they come to Las Cruces, New Mexico. Today, our goals are to let you understand why the contest was started, how participation can shape a student's career, how industry gets involved with the contest. And we're going to hear from faculty who bring winning teams about how their students benefit from their participation, why it's worth traveling to Las Cruces to compete, how they gather and fund their teams, and how they help their teams become winners. Today, we'll hear from 6 presenters, and we'd ask for you, if you have any questions, to post them in the Q&A. We'll address questions after each presentation, and then if there are any more at the end, we'll have an open panel. Today, our presentations will be by Mike Hightower, our lead judge, and he was on the WERC founding board 33 years ago. So he'll give insights about why the contest was started. Then we'll hear from Michael Jane from the EPA Office of Research and Development and a previous WERC competitor when he was a student. Then we'll hear from faculty, John Pardew from Louisiana State University, Audra Morse from Michigan Technological University, Darren Ridgway from Ohio University, and Matt Bernards from University of Idaho. After that, James Pleasant II will represent one of our sponsors, El Paso Electric Company, and then we'll have an open panel discussion. Today, our presentations will first be by Mike Hightower, our lead judge, and he was on the WERC founding board 33 years ago. So he'll give insights about why the contest was started. Then we'll hear from Michael Jane from the EPA Office of Research and Development and a previous WERC competitor when he was a student. Then we'll hear from faculty, John Pardew from Louisiana State University, Audra Morse from Michigan Technological University, Darren Ridgway from Ohio University, and Matt Bernards from University of Idaho. After that, James Pleasant II will represent one of our sponsors, El Paso Electric Company, and then we'll have an open panel discussion. Now we'd like to hear from Mike Hightower.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's see, I've got my obligatory WERC Design Contest shirt on. I've been involved with the WERC Design Contest since about 1995 and helped develop the major directions for the contest. And I just have a couple of slides that I'd like to show to kind of give you an overview of the thinking back in 1995. It set the context for the direction of the contest and what we tried to do. So it's really based upon what we would call an RFP solicitation in the real world. So it's not a science fair where everybody does their own project. We identify essentially an RFP that comes out. The students will look at the task statements and look for a solution to address most of the engineering issues: viability, cost, performance, public acceptance, schedules. And then in a real world, on an RFP, if a solicitation likes what you want, they actually ask you to do a demonstration, do a bench scale, come and present, write a paper on your results. And then if it's successful, hopefully they work with you to implement that and work with industry. So what we tried to do is mirror that engineering approach for developing projects. And so what we look at is developing tasks that are realistic, from environmental to remediation to biologically based. Some of them are public health and environmental health based tasks. You get to choose which one you might be interested in. Most of the times the contest has about 100 to 120 students. There's generally 5 or 6 tasks, and most of the teams have anywhere from 4 to 6 people on the task team. We have about 50 judges then that come and judge. These are all professionals from engineering, health and safety, public acceptance, environmental groups. that provide judges. So the students get the chance to interact with actual professionals in their career choice. This is not one of those places where you get an award for participation. We do have first and second places. We have special awards. Here's just a picture of some of the teams at a recent design contest. Very similar to what you would do on an RFP. You get together, you work within your universities. They look at the research that's going on, new ideas, things that they might want to include, collect team members to get the right size teams in the right different disciplines. They start collecting their information. Then they start crafting a bench scale they can take to the design contest and demonstrate their project. As a typical RFP, you oftentimes give a technical presentation of your results. So this is an example. Everybody comes, they get dressed up. They probably, all of them have a lot of new clothes because they haven't been dressed up for 4 or 5 years going to college, but they come, they give a professional presentation. They talk about their costs, their results, public outreach that they've done, the reason that their technology should be selected. And then they demonstrate their bench scales. The judges grade them on their oral presentations, their paper presentations. They go around and look at the quality of their bench scale. They're provided material to test and treat on their bench scale at the design contest. And we collect that data and measure that data to see that they're meeting the capabilities that they identified in their papers. And then we have poster sessions and have the students, just like you would in a regular technical presentation, where you can give poster presentations, you can have the public come by and look at your process. So we try to emulate an RFP professional environment in this contest. And the focus, again, is cost, performance, scheduling, public acceptance, the fact that the judges are there to work with the students to try to provide input on things that we think would help them in their career as they move forward. So the background of the contest was in 1995, as we were changing in DOD and DOE into environmental cleanup, there were no professionals that had this kind of experience. And so we spent a lot of time at WERC trying to develop approaches for students to learn about these issues, come out of college with these kind of technical skills. And what we found is that this design contest kind of puts all of that together and allows those students to fast track that so that when they hit the ground after they graduate, they understand exactly what's required of them from an environmental perspective and a public acceptance perspective of their work. So with that, Ginger, I think that's a good overview for me, and I think we can go to other people.
Thank you so much, Mike. And every field of engineering needs to understand how to address environmental issues. We did have a question. What is the year level of students? Are they seniors or younger?
They're generally juniors and seniors. We have seen some sophomores that find a project that they're very interested in, and they'll join in. It's good to have a mix of juniors and seniors, because if they really do well and they like it, you've got a management group that can, with some experience, that can help them in following years. I've seen many schools that have come in the first year, did not do very well. We got with them and talked about some of their deficiencies. And second and third years, they've come and done very well because they've had students that could continue to help out. I will tell you that not only have we seen positive things if you have undergraduate sophomores and juniors, but bringing in people from other technical disciplines, business, health and safety, and things like that actually build teams that are very, very competitive in the process because of the number of different aspects of an environmental problem that need to be addressed. So anyway.
Okay, thank you so much, Mike. And I know that there are some universities that bring students in as sophomores, and they're in a team of sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and then they move up as they go along and increase in their responsibility as they go along.
Thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate it. And now we'll hear from Michael Jane.
Hey everybody, my name is Michael Jane. I'm with the EPA Office of Research and Development in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I've been involved with this competition for a long time. My first involvement was when I was an undergraduate student. I was actually a student participant in this contest. Our task was to develop a zero-waste semiconductor manufacturing facility. And for me, it was really a great experience. It served as a capstone project for my senior year as an undergraduate environmental engineer. I was really struck by the opportunity to address a real-world challenge that was presented by an industry that really had an unsolved problem that we then had to try to solve. And it was complex and challenging and really made us think out of the box. I think it was a great experience for a number of reasons. I think one of the things that really stood out to me most was the ability to present our solution to the representatives from industry. In this case, it was the people from Intel who developed the task to solve this problem. They were very interactive with us, really impressed by our solutions. We're taking the time to really understand what we were doing, why we were doing it. And you really got the sense from them that they were taking your ideas to heart and they were considering these as moving things forward. That was really a great opportunity for me. And then, of course, after the contest, being able to put on my resume that I would participate in this contest, and in this case, we were first place winner. Having that somebody to put on your resume saying you have this real world experience, that's a great bullet to put on the resume. That gives you something to talk about during an interview. When you're an undergraduate student, you don't really have a whole lot to talk about when they ask about real world projects, and so this is similar to an internship where you can say, here's an opportunity where I did this real world problem. The other thing that really impressed me as a student was just having the opportunity to travel to New Mexico. I'm from upstate New York originally, very different climate, very different people, and just totally different area of the country. And so it was great to be exposed to the Southwest environment, go out to White Sands. That was all really a good experience for me. I hadn't really had the opportunity to travel that part of the world. That was excellent. Fast forward 15 years later, and I'm now at the Office of Research and Development. And starting last year, we started by sponsoring tasks at the contest. And so last year we developed a task that was very similar to an RFA that we'd actually put out to faculty. It was a $6 million in award funding. We proposed a very similar task to these students. And when we did that, for us, it was kind of questionable, how much were they even going to understand the problem? It's very specific, very complex. That was related to microbial monitoring during water reuse. We weren't really sure what was going to happen with the teams. But then when we actually went to go to judge the contest, I was very impressed with what the teams came up with. They clearly understood the problem. They really came up with creative solutions, the things that we had not previously thought of. Some of their ideas, really might work in the real world. So it was great to see that. And furthermore, it was great to interact with the teams, and to see their bench skill demonstrations and see their level of excitement and be able to provide them feedback on their solutions, and also some career advice and things like that I think they really appreciated. And you could tell the students really enjoyed that experience in the same way that I would as a student. So I'll leave it at that and pass on the next speaker. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Michael. We really appreciate it. And now we would like to hear from John Pardew.
Thank you, Ginger. My name is John Pardew. I'm a professor of civil and environmental engineering at Louisiana State University. We've been a long-time participant in the WERC contest for over 20 years of the 33 years of its existence. And I wanted to give you a little bit of perspective as a program coordinator as to why we continue to come back. What we see with our students as we're launching them out into the world is that it's very difficult to replicate what the contest gives our seniors. And it gives them an ability to not only interact with environmental engineering students and chemical engineering students and civil engineering students from all over the United States, but also puts them face to face with this remarkable group of judges that not only looks at their solutions and gives them positive or negative feedback, but does it in a positive way that builds capacity, builds confidence, regardless of whether they win or lose. And so for us, it became such an obvious selling point and strength that the students love the experience that we've really built a lot of our senior year around participation in the contest. Why we do that is that it checks just a lot of boxes for us as a program. We've again been ABET accredited since about 1998. We've produced over 500 students. We produce anywhere between 25 and 50 seniors a year. And so we can go to the contest and get these really industry written tasks with real constraints that we don't have to write ourselves, they're written for us. This competition has been around for 30 plus years. It's well organized. I don't have to go there and worry about, is the food going to show up? Are the judges going to show up? All those things. Everything is extremely well run, and they charge a really fair price for what they provide for the students. It's really scalable to any size student group. I brought 6 people before, and I brought 46 people before. I can scale it to any size student group that I have that I want to bring. If you have things that you're already working on in your lab, or things that are important for your region, or things that are important for your campus, as we've seen the last couple of years with a team from UT Chattanooga, you can fit into an open task this year, task 7. You're bringing an engineering design that is important for your location. It doesn't all have to be things that are written in the task from industry. I brought New Orleans stormwater projects, or I brought air pollution projects that were relative to my state that the judges worked with us to evaluate those and provided amazing feedback. So regardless of how you run your capstone program, there are things that fit into the work design contest. We use a lot of it for ABET. It fits well within an ABET outcome assessment structure. We've gone through 2 different cycles in the last 14 years where accreditors have come to campus and they have loved the work contest involvement. And we try to send every student that comes through the program. That's not always possible, but we've only lost just a couple of students that haven't been able to participate, and they love it. The ABET is extremely high on this as a way to assess the outcomes that are in your A through K ABET assessment. If you're an assistant professor, an associate professor, full professor, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to stay current on some things in the industry that I or you didn't know about till you went. Michael just talked about the EPA project. I didn't know much about that till I started. We had a team that did that. I learned an awful lot about that. And I'm involved in some things down that alley in my lab now because I was able to learn a lot from doing that project. And it's fun. The time that you spend there is a blast. I asked my students to raise $850 for a plane ticket that covers their hotel, that covers their food outside of what's provided by the contest. And then the remainder of the few thousand that I need for registration, other things I can get from my dean, my department chair, or I can raise that from industry. And so students, in some cases, get money from their parents or grandparents. They, in some cases, get money from internships that they're running and do it from there. When I go, the last thing I'll say is it really clarifies my role as a capstone coordinator. I'm not the judge and the mentor. I'm not the grader. I'm just the coach. I can go there and I can stand at this vantage point that you see here on the screen. I can watch them talk to the judges, and I can only be a coach. That's all I have to do. After this set of judges leaves, I swoop in, I find out what the questions were. I ask them to give me any questions, what their thoughts are, or any things they missed that they could improve on the next thing. And it really clarifies my role completely. The judges can be the judges. I can be the coach. And that makes things so much easier than trying to be the coach and the grader at both times. And you see here kind of the situation where you have winners in some cases, where on that Wednesday night, we go to an award ceremony and some of the teams win, some of the teams don't. And as you're driving back to the hotel that night with some winners and some losers, that's about as real as it gets in environmental education or undergraduate education. You know, you celebrate with those that were all in on their project and were successful, and it's something they'll remember the rest of their lives. And then those who weren't successful, you got to draw some lessons from that. And I think they're both equally valuable to the students, to be honest. I mean, that's a flip kind of a statement. I'd prefer them all to win, but I do think that I see a lot of growth in the teams as well that didn't win and move out of there. So did I mention it's fun? Karaoke or hiking or white sands or great restaurants in Old Town Mesilla. It's a very inexpensive place to visit. It's a water scarce environment with a lot of great people, and we just love it. We're going to continue to come as long as they'll have us, and we hope that you'll consider joining as well. Thanks so much, Ginger.
Thank you so much, John. Oh, and he shows a picture of his students playing at White Sands, which is only about less than an hour drive away, about 45 minutes.
Right.
You mentioned that sometimes you bring over 40 students. We did have a question in the chat. It says, I assume multiple teams can participate from one university. So when you have all these students, it's in smaller teams. Like last time you brought 6 teams?
Yeah, I like to do 6 to 7 students per team. I think 4 is too small. I like to have in the 5, 6 to 7 range where I can really get all of them engaged. They're not too big, they're not too small where you're missing some aspects. And so, yeah, we can compete. I don't like really them competing against each other. That happened this year where I had multiple teams who wanted to do, for example, the carbon capture task. And I let them self-select. I really think that they're going to spend this time doing this for a year. They ought to be able to pick what they're working on. I allow them to pick 2 friends that they'd like to have on their team. And I also anonymously allow them to pick one person they prefer not to have on their team. And then I make the teams. And generally it works out. You know, they're not all buddies and they learn each other. And obviously they get very tight. There are conflicts that have to be managed, but I think that the teamwork aspect of it is a great experience as well. And the judges are just so good at working with that. If there are problems, they point that out to me in their comments that I can use for the next year. And if they obviously are working together, that gives me great joy to see that the team has come together and seen that. So we'd encourage you to come.
Great, thank you. And he simultaneously, while there was a question put in the chat, you answered it without knowing it when they asked, do you let groups choose which task they'll work on? And you said that you do.
Yeah, I do. And not everybody gets exactly what they want. And sometimes I ask them, would you prefer to be in a group with this person who you maybe didn't want to work with? And a lot of times they'll self-select into another group if that's real important for them. But I don't have a lot of people moving around. Generally in September, these things are set and they don't really move around much. So.
Thank you so much, John. We really appreciate it. We did have another question in the chat. Is your capstone 2 semesters? And different teams handle this in a different way. Some use a 2-semester capstone, some use a 1-semester capstone. And on our website, we've posted some PowerPoint slides to guide you for the timetable for if you've chosen a 1-semester versus a 2-semester capstone model. And another question is asking about the cost of the program, and I will be covering that later because it's kind of a complex structure with discounts and multiple team discounts and that sort of thing. So now we're excited to hear from Audra Morse from Michigan Technological University.
I don't have the plethora of slides that John has, but I also don't have the plethora of experience that John has. Although I participated in this competition a long time ago as a student, this was my first year to do this with students. My situation is different. This is not done as part of a senior design or capstone experience. This is done through what we call Enterprise, which is an outside of class educational experience that basically students from their second semester of their first year through their entire time as undergrads can do open-ended design experiences. So for us and for my team that you see here, they were second and third year environmental engineering students. So this was really valuable for them because it gave them the opportunity to practice in those open-ended experiences long before capstone. You might question, could they do this as second and third year students? Absolutely. They had to rely on not only others in our department, but they also leaned on faculty members in other units. So my team chose to do a project related to reuse of stamp sands from copper mining. And being where I'm at in the school that I'm at, that we have a fondness of copper mining. And so the students picked that task knowing absolutely nothing, but yet were able to, on their own, develop a solution to the project that was assigned, to the problem that was out there. It really benefited them, again, as second and even third year students because they went beyond the technical skills in their class. They learned teamwork and communication. And I would say my team, they had me pretty stressed in the middle of the year because they started working on this in the fall. Because they were so new and so green and had never worked on a project longer than maybe a couple of weeks from class, they really didn't know how to plan and work for a long period of time. But we did take 2 semesters. But I will definitely say that the bulk of the work was done in the spring once they had really figured out what they were doing and how to navigate that open-ended project. For my students, most had never been out of Michigan except for maybe on a family vacation. So for them, it helped them see challenges that as engineers they may face when they work in different areas of the country. So what I mean by that is I work in a place where it's very blue and green. And so to go to the Southwest and not see the amount of water there and that how much water was a challenge for projects, it really hit home that what they see here, what they may even face in their classes that we propose to them as typical design challenges may not be appropriate for everywhere. One of the things that my students commented on that they really liked was that they were able to meet with industry professionals beyond what would again maybe typically hire out of Michigan Tech. We have a strong presence in the Midwest, and they're very familiar with companies here, but they learned more about industries and industry professionals, say in the Southwest, which was really great. They may have career opportunities there but hadn't really thought about it, or maybe had those connections, but they do now. So this is my team, this is what they had worked on, and if you're thinking about could you do this, I think between John's model and then our model, it does show that whether they do this for class credit or for senior design, it is possible at all levels that our students might be at in their education.
Thank you so much, Audra. I thought it was very interesting that you had second and third year students, but yet you didn't mention all the awards that they won, which was first place in the bench scale demonstrations and second place in the flash talks. And our flash talks are a Shark Tank-like event, and second place in the overall task award. So that shows that dedicated students, even early in their careers, can do very well at the contest.
Absolutely. So you can do it.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your presentation. And now we'll hear from Darren Ridgway.
Yeah, it's good to hear these different talks. We'll find that the universities do use different models. What we've done, we've been doing this for like 20 years. I've been doing it most of those years. I've had 228 different students do this over the years since I keep a list. Almost all of mine are chemical engineers, and that's because that's the department I'm in. I will have other engineers do it. It's usually when those students are coming to me and want to join and we find a place for them. I typically now am running 1 or 2 teams, and I agree with John. I like the 5 to 7 size range. I've run teams from like 4 to 9, but usually in a 5 to 7 range, you'll find your team can do a good job on the project, and they're all participating. No real stragglers. Now, at my university, participation is voluntary. I do run it as a class. They get a couple hours of credit for. It is not our senior design project. I do run it as a by permission class. I talk to each student and make sure they have the time to do it. They're not too busy to get it done, and it's pretty much open to everybody with minor restrictions. Cost, I find, right now it's costing me about $1,100 or $1,200 a person to do the contest and the trip. Unlike John, it's mostly an internal university thing, but we do not charge the students anything other than they're responsible for feeding themselves the times that work is not feeding them. The budget does end up meaning often I'm a little tight on our bench scale equipment and our bench scale construction, depending on the year. We do a lot of big borrowing and stealing to get the bench scales put together, depending on the year. My funding comes from the college. We do have a good source of that for student activities. Department has a good source of student activity funds. Maybe I have an industrial sponsor. I actually find my most successful industrial sponsorships are typically generated by the students, meaning someone they worked for as an internship or something, they go back to the company and the company will kick us maybe a few $1,000s. Any prize money we win goes back into the pot, and so that's helped us the last few years. In a typical year nowadays, I'm needing somewhere maybe from $8,000 to $12,000, given the number of students I've been bringing recently. We typically make the trip a week-long experience, with a couple of travel days in there. We do the competition, but I have been taking my students to the Grand Canyon, which is kind of a long way away, but we make it a big experience. And the trip itself is a big selling point. Most of my students have not been out west. I actually typically have maybe one student a year that's never been on an airplane before, so that becomes a big deal. Miscellaneous comments, I support Mike Hightower. If you do it, don't get too discouraged. The first year we went, we had the lowest score on every scoring category in every task we did. So we've gotten better at it over the years. Hey, I use my alumni to help the teams a lot, and in areas that I'm not talking about the auditors, but to help them. For example, the legal and regulatory issues, it would not be a strength of mine to know those things. I have alumni that do that stuff for a living, and I put the teams in contact with them, helps their projects. I think it's another professional building exercise for them to have to deal with these professionals and communicate with them. Yeah, I'm a big supporter. The number of comments I get from students later or alumni that this was one of the highlights of what they did, how much it helped them get a job, that it came up in the job interviews and gave them something to talk about. And so it really helps them professionally.
Couple of questions for you. Now, you mentioned legal and regulatory. People who are joining us for the first time don't know anything about the audits. It's an important part of making this like an RFP.
Yeah, this is a requirement from WERC that after they write their paper, that the paper is read and commented on and audited by professionals. Well, I use professionals in 3 areas: business, legal and regulatory issues, and health and safety issues. And so that's just a step in the process that they have to build into their timeline and their schedule. And so they get the feedback from that, and they're supposed to address those comments. So I was just commenting that I use my alumni for things other than the auditors. I also use my alumni just as consultants for my teams.
Wonderful. That's great. Now, when you mentioned the budget that you allot per student, that includes your trip to the Grand Canyon, doesn't it?
That's everything. Yes.
Okay.
I don't really break it down.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Appreciate hearing so many different perspectives and how different universities handle this. And we have one more faculty member, Matt Bernards from the University of Idaho, joining us.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matt Bernards, and I am faculty in the Department of Chemical and Biological Engineering at the University of Idaho. This is part of our senior capstone design, but it is only one of the project options that we present to our students. But fortunately, the students and the alumni in the department really hold this competition in high regards, and it's a point of pride to be selected for the WERC competition team. So inevitably, we always have a group of students who are very passionate about participating. Our department history with the competition goes all the way back to the beginning. And I think we've participated as a university in greater than 30 of the 32 or 33 WERC competitions. And as a result, we have a trophy case in the hallway that all the alumni come back and look at that have trophies from all of the years where our teams have performed very well. In contrast to what you've already heard, we actually try to target a little bit smaller team sizes. We prefer teams of 3 or 4 students because we find that if our teams get too big, we start to have students who really aren't contributing towards the project activities, and it's easier for them to fall by the wayside and hide. We did take home a first place prize this past competition with a team of only 3 students. And so if you have the right group of very highly motivated students, it is possible to do very well in these competitions, even if you don't have a large team of 6, 7, 8 students. In terms of how we fundraise, we go with the shotgun approach for raising funds for this competition. We have a tiny course fee associated with our senior capstone design that comes nowhere near covering even the bench scale costs. We, depending on the year, do aggressive letter writing campaigns to alumni from the WERC competition for donations. We have done applications to our internal Office of Undergraduate Research if the particular task might align with some of the undergraduate or faculty co-mentors' research interests. And we have had strong support from a local industry in Idaho, Micron Technologies. And so I've been fortunate enough to have a nest egg from a prior donation from Micron to cover any years where we've struggled in the fundraising perspective. I think one value added component is the diversity of the project topics and the fact that almost all of them are sponsored by an industry collaborator, co-sponsor, et cetera. So it really gives the students the opportunity to see a variety of engineering challenges, but then find something that they're passionate about helping solve as part of their career. And so when we pick our teams, I say, you're going to self-select teams and you're going to self-select the task, because if you're not passionate about participating in this competition, then the team itself is not going to do very well. I always use our end of the fall semester as a go, no go point for the team. So they turn into me a status report of their accomplishments over the first semester. If they are doing well, then we do the registration process. And for new teams, the early registration deadline is usually at the end of December. And fortunately, only once I've had a team that really seemed like they were struggling, they weren't meshing, and they weren't putting in the time and effort required. And so we did not attend the competition that year. So that's one of, I think, the two that we as a university have not attended. In terms of the activities, I always let the students self-select whether it's going to White Sands or doing a brewery tour of Las Cruces or doing some of the close hikes. And I think most of my other thoughts mirror what we've already heard. So I think I'll turn it back to Ginger for the Q&A session.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. So now I'd like to share my screen with you and show you a little bit about registration. We have the groups register as a team, and we set it up where the faculty advisor registers each student. Our fees are for regular registration, a team of up to 5 students plus the faculty advisor is $950. This turns out to be only $158 per person. And any extra people on the team is an extra $150 per person. And we've kept our registration fees level in spite of a lot of inflation. And as I did my calculations, I discovered that the fees now only cover the 4 meals that we serve at the contest. And there are a lot of other costs, which I handle by reaching out to sponsors. We do have a discount schedule. So if you can get your team registered for the early bird before December 31st, there's actually a discount of $100. Regular registration through the month of January for $950 and an extra $150 if you register late, because that's when we're trying to get all of our items ordered. If you do have multiple teams, there is a discount for additional teams under the same faculty member. So if you register 2 teams, your first team is $850 and your second team is $650 for 4 students registering. Additional students would be that $150. Your faculty advisor would be the one who registers all the teams and team members. Registration opens October 1st. So that gives you a chance right now as the semester begins to get your teams together, have them choose a project. You can wait until the fall semester and still fare well at the contest. It requires closely scheduled planning on your part. We do have our registration online. As soon as we get the new registration details, we will post them on the website. And we have a question. And this is a really great question. What if you have more than one faculty advisor? Would you recommend having only one? Actually, I was trying to simplify this. This is $950 for 6 people. So if you want 2 faculty advisors and 4 members of the team, that fee covers it. You can have as many faculty advisors as you want. Universities that bring multiple teams tend to have a faculty advisor for each team. So when we look at additional teams, that extra faculty member would count as one of the participants on that team. Audra or Darren, they asked, would you recommend having just one faculty advisor or more than one?
I think it's a function of expertise needed. And then probably the size of the team. I had a small team, so it was really doable with me. But we definitely had to lean on expertise in other, departments on campus. And if they had asked if they could be the faculty advisor or be a co, I would have said absolutely, because the more the merrier.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. Darren, do you have anything to add?
When we had 2 faculty members closely involved, we had 3 or 4 teams. I can run up to 2 teams. I do bring in help from outside, whether I call those advisors or not. I bring in people to help the teams in different areas.
That's good to know. When we include the faculty advisor in the registration, we're assuming the faculty advisor will attend the contest. If they are working with the teams at your university, but they don't come to the contest, then they're not included in the registration. And that's an internal issue with your department. And someone asked if the recording from today will be available. Yes, it will be. I will post it to YouTube and send a link to each of you who attended. And I hope that you will be able. Yes.
Excuse me. Somebody's free to call me or send me questions if they find something else they have questions about from a faculty point of view. That's fine.
Oh, thank you. So I will include Darren's phone number so that you can call. And another thing that Mike Hightower had mentioned in previous discussions with potential teams is, especially when you're a first-year team, we are here to help you along the way. And if you would like to meet with some judges, we are happy to schedule a meeting with you. We also have, as part of the task requirements, that your team submit a 30% review in beginning of February, I believe. It's not scored, but it's a way for your teams to get feedback from the judges before they finalize their project. So our judges who are engineers, they're with your teams all along the way. And we want to help you because this is about developing the next generation of engineers, and we want to be there for them. One thing that students always mention is they enjoy working with our judges because they feel like they're treated as colleagues rather than just being scored. But these judges are in there talking to the students about how they can modify their designs in order to make them a marketable product. So value-added resources at the competition. And our sponsor representative from El Paso Electric Company was not able to attend, but he did want me to let you know that sometimes when people look at an environmental design contest, they're thinking about environmental engineers. But we seek tasks in all fields of engineering. And he wanted to point out that the El Paso Electric task is particularly reaching out to all fields. And here's what he wrote. We want the students to understand the potential benefits and current challenges of utilizing renewables and emergent technologies such as solar, batteries, or electric vehicles in the perspective of a utility company, and develop innovative ideas on how to integrate them into the existing electrical grid and regulatory framework. So if this is something your team is interested in, I posted an overview of the task, and he agreed to give a special seminar to help students interested in this task get ready and understand regulations in the electrical grid. Now, we had a question, how many universities and teams are likely to participate? We have anywhere from 22 to 30 teams that participate in the contest. Our cap is currently 30, so we encourage you to register early. And what is really fun about it is they come from all over the country. When they come, they get to see how other teams solve the same project that they solved for teams that are in their task. And that's really an interesting perspective that they get, because each university has its own focus, its own thought process for research. And the teams bring very different solutions to the same problem. It's another way teams learn from each other. And we also have a game night. And this last game night, the students asked me for karaoke. So impromptu, we asked the venue if they could put some karaoke on the screen, and the students were all singing songs together. They were all joining from different universities, and that was a lot of fun. So I See no more questions in the chat. Audra or Darren, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I just hope to see you all there this upcoming year.
Thank you so much. I hope to see you too. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I am Ginger Scarborough. That is my email address and my phone number. Thank you so much for joining us today.